Hey everybody, I am Jared Clark with Airguns of Arizona, and today I'm doing a first for my video reviews, and I'm reviewing a spring piston powered gun. While it might seem like a less sophisticated gun that we're looking at today, I'm going to show you all the features and what makes this gun really cool. It is a self-contained, very accurate, very high quality build rifle in front of us here. So we're going to look at everything it has to offer exterior. We're going to put it under the microscope at 20 yards, and then we're just going to round out what makes a spring piston German made gun so great. So stick around, we're going to look at this one in depth. And as you can see, everything comes packaged very nicely in here. Germans make great mechanical products like the gun we're looking at, but they also do a great job of packing things very efficiently. So there's no room for anything to slide around, but you do have the gun, the scope, and the mount all included right here in this box. This is gonna be your 3 to 9 power Weihrauch scope, and the only other loose item down in the box is gonna be the set of sports match mounts. They're labeled Weihrauch, but these are sports match. They have the nice rolled arrestor pin, and they'll really do a good job of locking it onto the rail. So all of that comes in the box, as you see right here. I've gone ahead and mounted one up so we can see what it looks like all put together. So there it is. It's got the 3 to 9 power scope up top here. The Field Pros do come with this nice weight on the end of the barrel, so it gives it a good look, makes it a little bit easier to cock. But there it is. You could take this and a handful of pellets, go start walking around, and you'll be ready to start shooting. That's the beauty of a spring piston powered gun like this, is you're self-contained. All the power you need is internal here, and with a little bit of effort pulling the barrel down, you're ready to start shooting. So here we have it. This is the HW95 Field Pro. This one is set up in 177 caliber, but it is available in 22 caliber as well. The gun comes in weighing right at 8.7 pounds, so just shy of 9 pounds, but that is with the scope, the mount, and the muzzle brake here. So just under 9 pounds. The overall length from end to end here is 43 inches. So it's not a big gun by any stretch of the imagination. I would call it an adult-sized gun, because you can see me, it fits pretty normal for an average-sized adult. The cocking effort is not too heavy. It's right at about 35 pounds to pull the barrel down. So that's manageable by most adults. But this is kind of what I would consider the Weihrauch adult-sized air gun. So what can it do? I would say any kind of small pest elimination, birds, squirrels, rats, things that'll get into your garbage if you're looking for something that can take them out really quickly. Something like this is completely self-contained. Target practice. Most of your backyard shooting is going to be inside of 40, 50 yards anyway. So something like this is really nice for that. It's not loud. Like we said earlier, it's self-contained, so you don't have to have a filling device. You don't have to multiple pump it. You just pull down the barrel for each shot. So it definitely is great for backyard use. That's what I use one like this in my backyard, and it would probably be the very last air gun that I ever sell, just because it is so easy to use. It's pinpoint accurate for the backyard, doesn't make a lot of noise. It's really good for rural shooting. So if you find yourself in that scenario and you don't really want to get invested with the tanks and the air and the silencers and all the components that come with an air gun, this is a great starting point. This will put lead down range, and it'll do it efficiently out to 30, 40, maybe even 50 yards, but you have the stopping power and you have the ability to start shooting immediately with a package like this. So what we're gonna do now is just take a look at this gun and highlight all of the features it has to offer. In the back here, you have a rubber recoil pad. This one's not adjustable, it's fixed, but it does two things. It helps with the small amount of kick that's involved with this spring gun, and then it also helps with it gives you a nice contact point so it doesn't slip or slide on your shoulder. It's got some good gripping feel here. The cheek weld is cut out for both lefty and righty, and the pistol grip is fully ambidextrous too. So if you're a left-handed shooter or a right-handed shooter, this gun is ready to rock and roll in either configuration. On the pistol grip here, there's some laser engraved checkering. This is here for grip. It's gonna be nice point for your palm to not slip off of if you're sweaty. And then the other point on the stock that has that same checkering here is going to be on the forend here. So they're both actually at the contact points for your hand. Looks good, but it's mostly for grip. Right underneath the stock here, these are Record triggers, is the Weihrauch brand of triggers, and they are incredibly, incredibly good triggers. They break like glass. You can adjust them between a couple pounds up to probably 4 or 5 pounds, but all the adjustments done right here in the back, And if you do any kind of searching, these triggers have been around forever in the Beeman guns. Weihrauch has kind of made almost a reputation on the triggers alone because they've manufactured guns under their names and Beeman's names, but the triggers are insanely good. If you've ever bought a break barrel gun, a big box gun I call it, from Walmart, you know that the trigger leaves a lot to be desired. One of my favorite features is this rec-cord trigger. It really sets it apart from a lot of other break barrels on the market. This is the action of the gun. So this whole piece right here is the compression tube, I've heard it called, but your main spring is in here. So that is what powers the gun. That's what delivers the air for the shot, is when I pull this down, I just compress the spring in here. There's a spring that was loose, pulling it down compressed it. So now I have a lot of potential energy in that spring. And then what happens when you fire the gun, the spring decompresses in there, slaps into the piston seal, and when it slaps, it creates a puff of air. And that puff of air then is what launches the projectile down the barrel, and that's what gives you your velocity and your power really for every spring piston gun. So you can take away two things from that. It's self-contained, and you saw the cocking effort there. That's all you need for a shot. The second being that spring size will directly dictate how fast the pellet can be pushed. And it's a double-edged sword at that, because bigger springs are A, harder to cock, and B, a lot more violent when they go off. So a good spring gun, like this HW95, finds the balance point where it can still push a pellet hard enough that it's repeatable and accurate and serves a purpose, but it's not so hard that you rattle your brain and your skull when you pull the trigger from all the vibration. So it's a good, healthy balance point. And I went ahead and grabbed some of the others to give you an idea, because Weihrauch makes a whole line of guns. The 95 here is what I would call the adult gun. They have something like this. This one's the HW30. So as you can see here, almost looks exactly the same, but with a much smaller compression tube and probably about 5 inches overall length shorter. So there's a smaller spring in this gun. So if we think about those things we learned, it's gonna be a lot easier to cock, which it is. I mean, it's effortless. I'd call that one probably a child could, most 12-year-olds and above could probably cock that gun. Very easy. But it doesn't produce quite as much velocity. So if you find yourself thinking, I just want to shoot targets, I don't really want to cock it and have a big kick involved, something like this, even though it's only going to be shooting 500-600 feet per second, it'll be repeatable, it'll hit your target, and you'll just have a blast with it. Then on the flip side, where is something like this? This is the HW80. And again, you can see they all look very similar. You just have a small, like we said, a large, and then I'm gonna call this one an extra large, because the 80 here, it's beefy, and in turn, it's gonna have a bigger spring and it's gonna produce more velocity. So this one would arguably be your hunter. If you have a medium to larger size pest that you're trying to take care of, this one will pack your most punch. But on the flip side, it's gonna be one of the more difficult ones to shoot accurately. That big spring recoils, you have to absorb the recoil in your body. So it's a give and take, just like everything in life. You have to decide what kind of shooting you wanna do, what kind of cocking effort you're willing to put up with, and then also the recoil that comes with it. So it's kind of a balanced game, but the Weihrauch guns across the board are all very well built. You should be able to find accuracy in all of them. There'll be a little bit of a learning curve the bigger the spring gets, but these guns are built so well, they get backed with a lifetime warranty through us. So we are that confident in how well they're put together that we give it a lifetime warranty against manufacturer defect. So figuring out which gun fits you is gonna be most important, but once you do, Weihrauch brand, you can't go wrong with any of them. And then right on top of the compression tube here, the dovetail, there's an 11 mil dovetail rail that is cut directly on the top of it. So on this gun, you can see it with the trigger guard and with that rail. With any of the sights, there's nothing plastic or pressed on or stamped on or any kind of polymer that was ever formed into this gun. It is all metal and wood, and it's little small things like that. That's attention to detail, that's craftsmanship. That's what separates these from a lot of the other guns. You'll notice that the price tag's probably higher on this, but as it is with everything, you get what you pay for. So no plastic, nothing added on after the fact. Everything's machined right into the receiver. It really gives you a quality feel when you have something like that. We talked about the 3-9 Weihrauch scope that's mounted here. These are the single strap sports match mounts. And again, all of this comes with the package. I just went ahead and set it up here. So this is what it looks like assembled, but everything does come included there. It's not actually made in Germany by Weihrauch, but it is a lifetime warranty scope and it does bear their name. So it comes with the package. It's adjustable between 3 and 9 power magnification and has a minimum focus of 7.5 yards. So it's perfect for an air gun. Anything you could do from 7.5 yards out to infinity. This scope can give you a nice clear picture. It has a couple mil-dot holdovers, so if you want to have a couple different zero spots, it really fits the rifle well, and they did a good job of getting a capable scope to go with the package. So it doesn't leave anything to be desired. I would say this scope should get you taken care of and do all your hunting needs or plinking needs or whatever you need. Coming out here, you can see where it turns into a square here. This is where your barrel is, your barrel block. So your barrel connects there, and then that's the hinge point right here is where it's gonna break and cock the gun. So I think we already had this one cocked. So you can see right there, when you do that, the barrel points down. You always wanna keep your hand on it when it's in the cocked position. You have a spring that's under tension, so you don't want that to come loose or let go. So always keep your hand on it when it's cocked. That's a good rule for any break barrel gun. But that now exposes the back of the barrel here. So I'll kind of point it at you, but you can see there's a seal here that creates an airtight seal for the projectile moving down the barrel. And then this is where you put the pellet. You put it head first right into the back of the barrel here, and it'll kind of seat it with your finger and it'll stay secure. Now it's ready to rock and roll. The spring's gonna create the puff of air that then pushes it out the barrel. And the other thing on Weihrauchs that I really like, this reset wedge right here. It's a nice, precise wedge that comes to a point. A lot of cheaper guns will have ball detents there, things that just kind of lock it in place, but over the course of time, you wear down the surface of that ball detent, things start resetting looser and sloppier and you'll feel it age. Not with this. This one is made to reset on a point every single time. It's not gonna wear down, it's not gonna get sloppy over its life. So that's some of the quality and the craftsmanship that I think of immediately when I think of HW rifles, and that's what some of the cost is in this gun too. You definitely get what you pay for, and everything about this is high quality. A cool feature on Weihrauch that's also not on a lot of break barrels, you can decock the rifle. So if you're someone who likes to hunt and you've had it cocked for a couple hours, you're not seeing anything, you think it's time to take it home, you don't have to fire the shot. When you cock the barrel here, it holds, but there's a little bit of play. So I want you to pull it all the way down until you hear that click, engage the safety, and everything being held, if you squeeze the trigger slowly, the spring will now release its tension and I can walk slowly that barrel up. So now the gun's decocked the spring without having to fire the gun. It's useful in certain scenarios. If you're someone that's used a spring piston before, you're probably going, oh, that's cool. I didn't know any guns could do that, but Weihrauchs are one of the only ones that can. It's a cool feature. This is an automatic safety. So every time the spring is cocked, that safety gets engaged. So the first thing you do on every shot, you cock the barrel, put the pellet in, and when you pull it up, you will disengage the safety. That is there as a safety device, and once you start shooting it, it'll become second nature to pull it up, get your target, and then click it over. It's just something that your brain gets programmed to do after a little while. Weihrauch does make all their own barrels in-house, the HW barrels. Very, very accurate, and like I think we've mentioned, they did make all the old German Beeman guns. So if you remember the R7, the R9, the R1, the R10, the RX2, all of those guns, they carried a Beeman name, but they were made in this factory. So like the 95 here is the same gun as the R9. Parts are interchangeable, it's just with a different marketing on it. So you've probably been familiar with these guns. They've been around probably since the late 80s. Oh boy, I'm gonna get fact checked in the comments on that one. I think Beeman was bringing these in the 80s is when they started. So these guns have been around in a different name for years. So good barrels though, that's what I was getting at. The accuracy is inherent. They're incredibly accurate, and you can find loads of information about Beemans and Weihrauchs and how the accuracy is. So great barrels. On the interior, this is the, I called it a muzzle brake or a barrel weight. It's there mainly to help you with the cocking. It's not gonna be doing anything for noise. Noise is generated internally when that spring decompresses. So it's not doing anything for noise. It looks really good, I think, on the gun, but then it also gives you a nice leverage point when you go to cock it. This is screwed on the end here. So if you take that off, if you ever need to clean the gun or anything like that, it's easy access. That just comes right off and then threads back into place. On spring guns, you do have stock screws, and it is important that these never get loose, and the gun naturally wants to vibrate everything out. You know, there's vibration that happens when that spring decompresses. So it's always good to periodically go through with the screwdriver and make sure that all of your stock points here are nice and secure without much vibration. If they start to back out, it can affect accuracy, the harmonics and the barrel and the way the pellet leaves. So that's one of the other maintenance that comes with the spring gun, is periodically check your stock screws. Make sure that they're not loosened up. If you have all of a sudden accuracy that you weren't expecting that's deteriorating, clean the barrel, check the stock screws. That's the first thing they'll tell you on spring guns. So 2 things to keep in mind. Clean barrel and tight stock screws will always affect accuracy on a brake barrel like this. The HW95 Field Pro is available in both 177, like we have in front of us here, and the 22 caliber. The 95 platform by itself, just as a rifle, is also available in 20 and 25 calibers. Those are a little bit more specialty calibers, so you'd have to call for availability, but it is, the 95 platform itself is available in 4 calibers, 177, 20, 22, and 25. This Field Pro here, as the package with the scope, comes in 177 and 22. There we have the German spring piston powered Weihrauch HW95 Luxus Field Pro. It is a lot of a title, but the gun itself is very simple. Less is more sometimes, and like we talked about, it's completely self-contained, and the accuracy and the velocity we're gonna talk about here in a minute, but I think, you know, it'll meet all your expectations for a contained gun like this. So now that we've looked at everything on the outside, we're gonna take it back to 20 yards. We're gonna do some velocity, we're gonna do some accuracy, and then we're gonna see what kind of performance we can expect out of our first spring piston reviewed gun that we've done. So we're not gonna put air in this one, but we will meet you back at 20 yards. Let's get after it. 3 for 3. Man, that really hits hard. That does. It knocks over some heavy steel. Okay, so we have the HW95 Field Pro back here at the 20-yard range. So I'm gonna show you some quick how-tos on this gun real quick, some do's and don'ts, if you will, and then we'll get into the accuracy and the velocity testing. First thing we're gonna talk about is the actually breaking the barrel and cocking the gun. There's a couple things you always wanna do in this process. You wanna have a good grip on the gun, and then you wanna get as far out on the barrel. The further out you get, the more leverage you're gonna get, so it's gonna be easier. And when you pull it down, keep your hand on the barrel at all times. So because right now there's spring tension. If I let go of that, it's coming up with some force. And that's the case all the way until you hear that click. The catch now has it, it's cocked. The spring is set, but I'm gonna keep my hand right here because it's safety. There's a high tension spring under pressure right now, so always keep your hand on that barrel. It's always safe practice. So now that we have the barrel cocked, I'm gonna grab my 177 H&N Field Target Trophy pellets, and we're just gonna put one in like we talked about, nose first. I always just use the back of my thumb to seal it in there. So now the pellet's in there. I'm gonna close that. Notice I wasn't very gentle with it. This thing is built very well. If you go slow, it's not gonna wanna seal in the right spot. So go ahead and close it with some authority. The gun can take it, and it's ready to fire now. Every time it's cocked, that safety engages just in case you bump the trigger. So until you disengage this, you will not be able to fire the gun. So right now, there's a pellet in the barrel, the spring is set, and the safety's disengaged. This gun is hot right now. So it's ready to fire, and that's the whole process it takes to get a shot ready in this air gun. The last thing I'm gonna mention real quick is hold sensitivity. A spring gun, when it fires, that spring decompresses and slaps the piston seal and can actually cause some vibrations on the barrel before the pellet has completely exited. So when they talk about hold sensitivity, you're basically trying to reabsorb all the recoil from the gun with your body. Your body is really absorbent and it doesn't have a lot of kick. So if I go right off a sandbag here, you would see the gun physically jump from that spring recoil. So I tell everybody that shoots spring guns, hand is always underneath the forend for accuracy. And ideally, you don't want to have the bag or anything touching. When you start touching and making contact points, that's where the harmonics can start to come into play with the barrel. So hold sensitivity and a light hold. I don't want this rear bag touching anything. I don't want the front of the gun touching anything. So this would be a very soft spring piston hold. that is the basic function of a spring gun. We covered everything you need to know to safely cock it and shoot it accurately. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put 5 shots downrange at 20 yards and see what kind of group size we can hold together. Kind of give you an idea for the accuracy you can expect out of this gun. There is 5 shots right on the very top of the bullseye. I brought this 1-inch MOA coin for reference, but it's just gonna absolutely dwarf our target there. So that is a very, very tight 5-shot groups, but great repeatability. When you think about a spring decompressing, going down, pushing the air down a barrel, that's impressive. That's German engineering right there. They make great spring piston guns, and that's the proof for you right there. So now that we know what kind of accuracy we can hold together here, we're gonna get back at the bench and we're gonna shoot a handful of shots over the chronograph and find out what kind of average velocities we're getting out of it. So we went ahead and plugged the chronograph in. We're gonna find out what kind of velocity these 8.6 grain pellets are averaging. So we'll do a handful of shots and give you a rough average. So with the 8.6 grain pellets over 5 shots, I am averaging 841 feet per second. So that's a good flat pellet. So any kind of target shooting, we showed you what it can do at 20 yards, 30, 40 yards isn't out of the question with that kind of repeatability. So good speed, anything you could possibly want to do with target or pest elimination, I think you got it here. And compare that with the good grouping that you get at 20 yards. And like I said, you got the ultimate gun here. I don't know what more you could possibly want. So that's gonna do it for the 20-yard portion of this review. Let's go ahead, we'll take the gun back into the showroom and we'll wrap this up. There it is. That is the first ever break barrel review that I've done. I'm glad that you came with me on this journey. It's been very fun, but I hope that if you stuck with me this whole time, you realize that a spring piston break barrel gun can be fun in its own right. Granted, we're not doing 100 foot-pounds and we're not gonna be dotting I's at 100 yards with a gun like this, but we showed you the potential at 20 yards. They'll stack pellets right on top of each other. You have pest elimination, you have backyard potential out the roof through something like this. So the simplicity is what I truly love about it, and I know that if you put your hands on one, you would kind of have the wow factor that I do. The build quality, the accuracy, and the performance of this rifle is off the charts. I hope you enjoyed this review. I know that I sure did. If you want to try out one of these break barrel guns, give Airguns of Arizona a shout or look us up at airgunsofarizona.com. You can find them on our website there. And if you liked this video, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, do anything you can to follow us and promote us on social media. We would very much appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this view. I'll see you next time.